Show me your heart. I know that it's beating. Tell me that you love me too. So I know your heart is true. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. Do you like cryptocurrency, politics, economics, activism, or art? Then check out The Tatiana Show, where you can learn all about it in a fun and non-intimidating way, as if you're just hanging with friends. Go to thetatianashow.com and listen now.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to a very special Love is Blind Proof of Love. Proof of love is blind. Hopefully we're not blind, but we are missing a vital member of our team today. Tatiana is not with us once again for part 2 of the show. She's having some internet issues, and we are in the middle of the zombie apocalypse. So hopefully that all gets fixed soon. We know she's okay. She's just waiting on some internet fixation to happen. So we miss you, Tatiana. But we are also talking about reality TV. So I kind of have a feeling that she's not, if she has to miss a show, she's probably not too sad to miss this particular show.
Agreed.
So I am Stephanie Murphy, and I am joined by the lovely Lauren Kasovitz. Hi, Lauren.
Hello.
Yeah, and we are continuing our discussion on the show Love is Blind, a Netflix special where people fall in love without seeing each other, propose to each other, and then move in and do this accelerated process, which leads some of them down the aisle to marriage and some of them to take a hard look at their life and reevaluate everything.
Jessica.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to get to that. But last time we were talking about the beginning of the show, and we had not seen, because it was not released yet, and we are total junkies pouring this into our brains as soon as we could. At least I was. I don't want to speak for you, Lauren. Yeah. We were really excited about this show, but at the time when we recorded part 1, the last part of the show that showed the weddings and also the reunion special 6 months or a year and a half later, I guess, was not available yet. So we didn't know the outcome. But now we have seen the finale and we have seen the wedding show and we know what happened. And we know sort of a follow-up on the people too.
Oh, we sure do. We have a lot to discuss here. And I know for me, I was trying not to give away any spoilers last time, but we can just delve into it this time because I think most people have seen it. And if you're listening, probably seen it.
Right. Okay, so spoiler alert, spoilers ahead. If you don't want to be ruined on the show, then go pause Proof of Love, turn on your Netflix. As long as you can still get internet, you can binge on the show. What else are you going to do anyway? You're all working from home anyway and staying home, so you might as well. And let's dive right into it, Lauren. So my first question is were you surprised by what happened at the weddings?
Yes. So there were a few I was not surprised about, but the first, which is, arguably kind of the tamest couple that I was really shocked about, was Kenny and Kelly.
Aha, yes. Okay, so Kenny and Kelly were, I would say that, I was thinking of them, they're like the boring couple.
Yes.
They were portrayed as being very kind of I don't know, just lukewarm, and there was this scene where they were talking about how they had not had sex yet, even though they had met each other. And Kelly was kind of saying stuff like, I always pick the wrong guys. I'm attracted to assholes. And it seemed basically Kenny was really nice and he was a really good guy. And she, for whatever reason, was not attracted to that. Was that your read?
Yes, I think she really wanted to be. I don't know if she really gave it as good of a chance as I would have liked to have seen, but yeah, it seemed like she knew he was a great guy and she wanted to finally give that kind of great guy a chance in real life. But at the end of the day, she still let that, chemistry and attraction factor take over, which, is not wrong. Just for me, I wish she had been more open with him instead of when they had that conversation about sex and she was saying to him, well, I don't want to ruin something that's perfect and things are going so great. I wish she could have just been a little bit more honest because God knows Jessica got a lot of flack, but I feel like she was a little bit more straightforward with Mark in terms of sexual connection.
At least when she was drunk.
At least when she was drunk. But yeah, it was kind of like they were, and I don't mean this in an offensive way at all, but they were kind of just like a loaf of bread, those two. Like two loaves
white
of
bread.
white bread.
Yeah.
Like, you know, sweet and cute and, you know, nice people, but there was no spark there. And I think Kenny felt the spark, though. Actually, I'm going to reframe
Yeah,
that.
I think Kenny felt the spark too. And I mean,
Yeah.
I really liked the way that he brought up the conversation. I wish he would have maybe like paid a little more attention to that as kind of a red flag. But what he said was, you know, we haven't had sex yet. I know how I feel about that, but how do you feel about it? And then she said, well, I just don't want to bring that into the mix just yet because I'm worried about ruining our connection. And to me, you know, I think that the whole idea of the friend zone is kind of like a problematic idea, you know? And that's the idea that like women place men in the friend zone when they don't want to be in a romantic relationship with them, but they still want the, you know, attention that the guy is giving her, you know, as a friend who wants something more. And so they kind of keep them at arm's length and don't have sex with them. And I think that there's a lot of bad ideas rolled up into that idea, right? Which is like the idea that a woman owes you sex, or that if you just be nice enough to her or listen to her or do any of the things that a normal friend would do, and most friends don't expect sex, then she should want to have sex with you. You know, and sometimes they're just not attracted, and a woman can say no for whatever reason she wants. It doesn't even have to be a woman. Anyone can say no for whatever reason they want, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just wish there had been a tiny bit more honesty. And to be fair, it could also be the way production put things together. Maybe Kelly did give him some honesty that we didn't see, but the way that they set up the actual wedding and the I do's was so problematic to me, just across the board, because they set it up. If you guys have seen, you've seen that they set it up where they have a full wedding planned that the people are actually paying for themselves. Production does not pay for these weddings.
Really?
So,
That's very interesting.
Yeah, they paid out of pocket. And so they have a wedding. They're trying on their wedding dresses. They get their hair and makeup done. They have flowers. They have family. And then you don't find out who is going to say yes or no until they're physically up there with whoever it is that's about to marry them. And they ask them, do you take so-and-so? Do you take so-and-so? The way you would at a traditional wedding. But that's the time where they say yes or no. After this beautiful discussion about feelings and a whole wedding and gathering your friends. And it just, to me, the humiliation factor of doing that in front of people was so gross. And I really thought it was just exploitative and just gross. I didn't like it. Were you as offended by it as I was?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely upped the stakes to the point where it's a very successful show and it made for good drama. But it was not good emotionally for any of the people, including their friends and family, who were like biting their nails. Oh. What are we going to do? Like, are they going to get married or not? You know, is my daughter or friend or whatever going to get left at the altar by their weird fiance who we just met today? You know, It's like enough to give your old grandmother a heart attack, right? So I didn't like that, but I did want to just finish a thought that, like, before we were talking about the weddings, I was saying about the friend zone. I think it's problematic, but at the same time, you know, I thought Kelly's response when Kenny asked her, "Hey, like, we haven't had sex yet. What do you think about that?" I thought she was like, a lot of people would have interpreted that as, oh, she's putting him in the friend zone. She's not really being fully on, like, she's kind of hanging on to the relationship, but she's not ready to go all in, and she's not really saying, well, I don't feel ready yet for these reasons, or I'm not attracted to you, or whatever. She's not really being completely open about what's going on for her, even though he was asking for that kind of connection.
Yeah. I thought it was just so tricky. Maybe also, granted, personally, I'm not attracted to Kenny, but I was really attracted to his personality and the way he treated her, and just the general like calming factor he had, there was just something really lovely about him. And I just thought he deserved more. And then on the other hand,
yeah, and that was the red flag that I was referring to,
right?
was like the lack of vulnerability, or even the lack of, if she wasn't able to express what was exactly going on for her, then, that could be kind of a red flag too, because, in marriage, you're going to have to communicate about a lot of different things. And if a person has trouble articulating the way they feel, or being vulnerable, or experiencing emotional intimacy, then that can all hinder you in the development of a marriage.
Exactly. I mean, oh God, it was so crushing when he gave that speech to everybody there and, kind of just said, thank you for coming. And I'm so sorry. I don't even remember exactly what he said, but it was really lovely.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you caught Kelly's mom mouthing, I love him.
Yes. Yeah, her mom loved him, but her mom doesn't marry him. I mean,
exactly.
So yeah, you were talking about the setup of the wedding. So yeah, what happens is like, okay, the couples, meet blindly, right? They propose, they go on the pre-honeymoon, they move in together for a month while they film, and then they have this moment where they show up at their own wedding, and then but the wedding is not a guarantee, and at the altar, they have to say, I do or I don't.
Yep.
And I wonder how they decide who they're going to ask first.
Right. That's exactly what I was thinking, because it was definitely specific per couple. The producer 100% set that up.
Yep.
So, and I was thinking about that too. I mean, we're not going to delve too deep into production, but I know how production works on the back end of a lot of these reality shows. And for instance, The Bachelor, there is a producer for every couple of contestants. The actual Bachelor has his own producer. I'm curious if that's what was going on with this show as well, if they each had their own producer.
Oh, interesting.
And they maybe discussed that and said, well, we think he's going to say no. We think she's going to say yes. Let's set this up for maximum impact. I'm not sure. I don't know for sure. But yeah, it was really, really interesting how that worked. I'm sad for them, but at the end of the day, they weren't a good match, obviously. And I don't know if we want to touch on the reunion after, but Kenny seems very happy now.
Yeah, he found another person, and he said he learned so much about himself through this process. So spoiler, what happened was, they got to the altar. Kenny gave a beautiful speech. Kelly's mom was saying, I love him. And he was saying, yes, I want to marry her. She gets up there and she says, no. She was basically like, I love you, Kenny, but no, I can't marry you. It's not right.
Yes. And it just, oh man, he really thought she was going to say yes. Well, what I was wondering too is, do they really discuss what they're going to do up there? There has to be some kind of rule or something in their contract that says they don't discuss it. I
was wondering that too. Yeah. Like, how do they get in between the couple and prevent them from having this conversation with each other?
Yeah. I mean, that seems like you're trying to get to know each other. That's a pretty big thing you should be talking about. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. I got a feeling with one of the other couples we're about to discuss that they had talked about it, but I'm not.
But then someone changed their mind.
Yes.
Yeah, that could always happen too. I mean, right. Like what is going to happen if you talk to your partner and you say, I don't think I'm going to say yes. Like they're not going to go through with getting ready for the wedding and calling the family there and all that stuff.
Yep. It just, do we want to move on to another couple? Because I'm thinking about one that maybe that happened to them.
Yeah, sure. Which couple are you thinking of?
I was actually not going to go to Jessica and Mark yet. I was thinking about Damien and Giannina.
Okay. So what is your prediction of what happened behind the scenes? And first of all, just for a little recap, this was this couple that, they were very quirky, both of them, and unique. And I think they were a good match in a lot of ways. But, they were discussing getting married beforehand, and they were having these fights where she was saying he's not good at sex. And have you noticed, like, when you say that this is the best sex of my life, I don't return the compliment?
God, that was rough. That was rough.
Yeah, that was rough. And then, he was having this moment that I really liked where he was saying, I haven't been true to myself through this relationship. I've kind of been letting you walk all over me, and that stops right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that as an example of good, I guess, good boundaries and, staying true to yourself in a relationship. And he knew that he had to do that for the relationship to survive. And then there was also this moment where they were meeting each other's parents, and her parents were kind of like, why do you think you're ready for marriage? And he had a good response. Damien had what I thought was a very good response that showed that, yes, he is ready to get married. And Giannina did not have a good response. It seemed like she's obviously not ready to get married, and her parents could see that.
Well, I think what happened with them is I think they do have a great connection, and we all saw it. Like you said, very quirky. I think what might have happened there, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Damien, but Giannina is a very beautiful girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he saw her and was just like, holy moly. Like, I don't think he expected that.
Mm-hmm.
And God, this is tough to say, but I do think her looks and her being from another culture allowed her a little bit more leeway to act a little wilder when they were fighting than if she wasn't as cute. I know that sounds terrible, but as I was watching them, and I watched them often because I was trying to figure out what was going on there, because he would pull away when they would fight. She would get very hot-headed, very passionate.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't seem to be super turned on by that passion. It wasn't like they had that kind of passionate fight and then make up situation.
Right.
But that didn't seem to be the dynamic to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but just from watching, it didn't seem. But I do think throughout it all, he was heavily physically attracted to her. And I think combined with their connection in the pods and the experience they had after the pods and getting to know her a bit before seeing what she looked like, he really had developed these really strong feelings.
Mm-hmm.
He saw her and it compounded a little bit in a different way. I don't know if that's making sense or if I'm kind of shooting in the dark here at that, but
well, I agree with you that, like, so she's Venezuelan, and I think there is definitely a stereotype of Latina women, that they are passionate and that they, can get very heated during arguments, especially like lovers' quarrels. And of course, that is a stereotype that doesn't apply to anyone. But sorry, it doesn't apply to everyone. But I think maybe he, obviously knew about that stereotype from just it being everywhere in culture and movies and stuff. And he was like, oh, okay, this is kind of maybe what I should expect from her, and it's normal. And she was maybe thinking, okay, well, this is what people expect of me because they are also going to stereotype me. So maybe that was affecting the dynamic from both ends.
I agree with that too. And I just as a side note, I find it completely ironic because a few of my best girlfriends are Latina and they are the most even-tempered, like cool-headed girls I know. So that's
the problem with stereotypes, is that they are not always accurate, but they are usually applied universally.
It's completely laughable. And she also has a career in social media as an influencer. So I think that was maybe subconsciously pushing her to be a little bit more dramatic. Maybe the situation, there's a lot going on there, but they weren't connecting as much in the end, and they kept fighting. They kept arguing. I wasn't sure he would say yes. I wasn't sure she would say yes when it came to the wedding day. So what happened with them is, she said yes first, and then said no. And oh boy. Oh, did we get drama and fireworks? She was humiliated, and I really felt for her so much in that moment.
Yeah.
But that was really hard to watch. And it was hard for him. You could see, I believe he was crying right afterwards.
Yeah, he was crying as he said no.
Yeah. It just was, it was really tough. And she ran away, and
she slipped and fell, and This was the preview of the bride who was running away and slips and falls down the hill.
Exactly. It was just very hard to watch. It was really emotional. I think for a lot of people, it was fairly unexpected.
Yeah.
And for them, when we got the reunion, we found out that they are actually together as a couple.
Yeah, they are still together, right? After, she had some time alone, she said, I need to go talk to him. She went and talked to him and she said, "You screwed up." And I knew at that moment that they were going to still be together after this.
Yep.
Because she didn't say it's over. She didn't say, you don't get a second chance. I can't forgive you for this. She said, "You screwed up," which means I want you to make this up to me.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly it. And I like them as a couple. I think they're so bizarre, but they work. Yeah. And I hope they work out. I mean, she said on the reunion show, and it made me really happy that she apologized to him for a lot of her over the top antics. And
nothing makes you self-reflect like literally seeing your own behavior recorded and played back to you on a TV screen.
It's so true. And it seems like they've really had a really good go of it right now. I also, when we were saying, how do the producers keep them apart from discussing what they're going to do at the altar? I really found it interesting because he had said, when explaining his position, why he said no, that they had talked about no matter what happened when they were up there, saying their I do's or I don'ts, they were going to walk out of it together. And I think that was his cryptic way of telling her that no matter what happened, he wanted to be with her.
Yeah.
So I think they both kind of knew, and it was less of a devastation factor of them not being together when they were up there and more of that humiliation on her part. So
yeah, I agree. And I mean, the thing that we didn't see was a double no, where both people said no.
We did not.
I would have kind of liked to see that. Like if both people were like, yeah, this is crazy. Like I love you and I want to be with you, but we are not ready to get married after just 1 month of knowing each other.
Well, it was also, I mean, there was quite a bit of infatuation on some people's behalves that we were watching. I mean,
yeah.
Do we want to, buck into Jessica and Mark?
Yeah, sure. Let's go. So,
I mean, he was so infatuated with her. Mark is younger, I believe 24, 25. Jessica is 34, I believe, or 35.
35, yeah.
35. And he had zero issue with her age. She had all the issues with the age. There were many issues there in that relationship.
Yeah.
But he was really just so into her. And I've seen that in couples before. This isn't the first time I've seen that, where a woman or a man is treating their mate like absolute garbage 85% of the time, and then 15% of the time super loving, super into them, and they hold on to that 15%, and it's like, we have something, it's special. That's what Mark was doing. And I wanted to be sad for him, but I also kind of just wanted to like slap him across the face and just be like, wake up. What are you doing here? Like,
exactly. I mean, seeing that relationship play out, I would say it was kind of triggering for me because it reminded me of some of my past relationships or almost relationships where like I was sure I definitely wanted to be with that person and I was completely enamored with them and I would do anything to make it work. And I did do everything I could think of in my power to make it work. And they just were not as into me. They had doubts from the beginning. I tried to talk to them about the doubts, but they couldn't really articulate it, or they weren't really willing to work on those things to turn their doubts more secure. And, you know, I ended up being kind of blinded like Mark was. And in reality, I think they're looking back on it, their eye was wandering the entire time and they were definitely not in the same headspace that I was about the relationship. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
So it was a little bit difficult to watch that with Mark, but it was also eye-opening because, you know, Jessica was made out to be a villain on the show. I mean, she was shown, you know, to be fair, she was shown her own behavior. The things that she did that a lot of people didn't like were that she developed this connection with Mark, but she wasn't quite sure about it. She wasn't quite sure about committing. She was trying to get with Barnett, who was the very in-demand guy that 3 girls were interested in. And she was trying to see if she could scheme to get with him. And she didn't really, it wasn't shown that she really was honest with Mark about that completely. She definitely wasn't honest with Mark about it afterward, because when Barnett rejected her, she went back to Mark and said, oh no, this is a terrible mistake. I'm like, basically she broke up with Mark for Barnett.
Yes.
When she thought that Barnett was going to propose to her. Barnett said, I'm not going to propose to you. And then she went back to Mark and said, oh, come on, please take me back. Like, don't you want me? And he was like, well, yeah, I always wanted you. So it's a no-brainer. But then they had problems the entire time because she obviously really wanted Barnett. Especially when she saw Mark and she was intimidated by the age difference, and it was really in her head that, you know, this wasn't going to work in the real world. And she made it a self-fulfilling prophecy because she believed that, and then she made it come true.
I agree. And the thing that maybe I'm confused, but isn't Barnett also a lot younger?
Yeah, he's only 27. So he almost had the same age difference, and she never once mentioned that it was a problem with him. So I don't think that it was really the problem. I think the problem was that she wasn't really attracted to Mark.
Exactly. At the end of the day, that's what it was. And I've actually heard a lot of feedback online, just as a thought. A lot of women have called into various shows and news outlets and on Twitter and Instagram saying how hot they think Mark is. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. She wasn't attracted. That's fair. That's okay. You're not going to be attracted to everybody.
Right.
But I really didn't like that she was using kind of almost every other excuse in the book.
Yeah.
And that was kind of just rubbing me the wrong way. And Mark was choosing to see what he wanted to see. And like you said, it's fairly common. We've all been there. He is a lot younger. Mm-hmm. And he was, you know, legitimately looking for love, and he thought it was with her. And she had a lot of feelings that maybe he was looking for another mother figure. Who knows? That could have just been another excuse. Maybe he was. There were so many tricky things within their relationship. I believe they did end up having sex, didn't they?
Yeah, they were saying that towards the end they formed a physical connection, but they didn't talk about it very much. No. And I kind of wonder what really happened behind closed doors, you know?
Yeah, it was so strange for all the times that they did talk about not having sex. Suddenly it was like, oh, now we're physically connected. It's great.
Yeah. And, you know, at first I was really like, oh, Jessica, she's triggering me. This is really bothering me because I think that I've been Mark, you know, in the past. Yeah. But then like they were kind of talking, and as they became a little bit more emotionally intimate after the pods, she was kind of revealing what happened in her past. And she said that basically like her father abandoned the family and her stepfather adopted her, but she always felt this wound and like this fear of, you know, that she's going to be rejected, and she's afraid to commit to anything. And she's got a lot going on inside of her because of her childhood. And I thought that was great because it is always pretty much the case. And it's never someone's fault the way they've been hurt or traumatized in the past. It is their responsibility to heal from it, as much as it sucks sometimes. Healing is your responsibility, and that's something you can control. But it's not your fault what happened to you in the past.
No, and I felt for Jessica in a lot of ways. I didn't think of her as a villain. I thought that she was just confused and pretty strong.
Confused. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, I'm reading this book right now, John Bradshaw, Creating Love. And this is an old book that David and I found in a library, like an old library of books. And we just picked it up and started reading it. And it turned out it was really good. But the whole book is basically about the ways that people are confused by trauma, usually that happens to them in childhood. And anything that reminds them of the trauma or triggers it can kind of snap them into this like hypnotic trance-like state where they do things that are very confused and kind of don't make sense. And so, yeah, we're all confused by trauma, and it especially shows up in romantic relationships where we are so unaware that we're just like photocopying our parents' relationship in so many ways, or ways that we were hurt in the past. Yep. And so, you know, this is a great thing to be aware of, but it is so tricky to sort out that confusion, especially, you know, without the help of like objective third parties like therapists and stuff, that it's no wonder people's relationships are so effed up most of the time.
Yeah, it's so true. And I mean, it was interesting to see it play out, but I think one of the things that made Jessica come off as such a villain was how she was still consistently flirting and going after Barnett a bit.
And not being honest with Mark about it, or anyone, or
No,
Amber,
and
Barnett's fiance.
Amber, who she just gave it to her. And there were a lot of very awkward scenes with both of them drunk at the bachelorette party, just trying to discuss things, making no sense, just awkwardness. I mean,
Yeah.
It just felt like Jessica was going after Barnett, not because of Barnett, really. It was that guy she couldn't get.
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
Right, chasing after that and seeing, I think maybe she thought she was better than Amber in some ways. And I don't want to, put words into her mouth, but it felt like she thought, well, if Barnett could really get to know me again, he would choose me. And that was tough to watch too. And I felt bad for Jessica. Like I said, she seemed pretty wasted the whole time. And it seemed like when she watched everything back, she had to take a good hard look at herself and seemed contrite, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I was really impressed with her, actually. I mean, can you imagine? Like, I have definitely had Jessica moments that I'm really glad were not caught on camera.
Oh my God, we all have.
We all have. And everybody was judging her so harshly. Everyone was judging all of these people so harshly on social media. And it's really it's a hard thing to put yourself out there like that. I hope they get opportunities and are well compensated in some ways, or at least learn from it, because it is like you're really being vulnerable when you put yourself out there on TV in love like that. And that's a hard thing to do. But it did seem like Jessica benefited because it seemed like she had gone to therapy. She was not dating. She was staying single, and she was reflecting on the whole experience, and it taught her a lot.
I agree. And we all knew that she was going to say no. And we all knew that Mark was going to say yes.
I didn't know that she was going to say no.
Really?
I mean, I knew that Mark was going to say yes, but I thought she would maybe take a leap of faith after all the reassurances he did. I thought that maybe there was a part of her that really wants to be loved and that really wants to be married, like she was saying, and that part would win out, but it did not.
Well, you know what? How you said you've seen yourself in Mark, as have I, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I've also seen myself in Jessica.
Yeah, I have too.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I know sometimes it takes something really big to end it. And that's what happened with me when I dated someone that's amazing guy, amazing across the board, but I wasn't attracted to. And I tried and I tried.
Mm-hmm.
And just a pivotal thing happened in our relationship where I had to stop and say, okay, do I want to take this any farther or not? This is not fair to him. And
what was the pivotal thing? If you don't mind me asking, I'm curious.
I don't know if he listens.
Okay.
I don't want him to be called out. I went through a period of time where I dated quite a few guys I wasn't attracted to. So there's not one in particular, but one where something happened where I had to be like, okay, this is getting serious. Let's end it right here. And yeah, you kind of have to. So I think for her, it was that she just was overwhelmed with feelings of like, oh God, I can't do this. And it was sad.
Like,
oh, go ahead.
Why did you date guys that you weren't attracted to? Looking back on it now with the perspective you have, I'm curious about that.
I'll tell you why. So, I had a 10-year relationship with somebody that was an amazing guy. At the end, it wasn't right in the end, but best friend. And he was somebody I was very attracted to. And so after him, I was like, okay, well, attraction is a big deal for me. And I dated a couple of guys that I was very attracted to that were terrible. Mm-hmm. Terrible.
Okay. So you assumed you're attracted to jerks.
So yes. So I was like, all right, maybe I'm going to stop dating guys that are like traditionally hot guys and because I need to give other guys a chance. And I did. And a few of the guys that I wasn't attracted to that I gave a chance to were equally terrible, if not worse, because not only were they terrible, but I also wasn't attracted.
They weren't even hot. Yeah.
It was horrible. And a lot of my friends said to me, we give you a lot of credit for not putting yourself in a box anymore and really giving everyone a chance. And some of the guys that I dated that after we had sex, I was way more attracted to them for sure. And good guys. a handful of them were stellar guys that the moment we broke up, in my head, I was like, oh man, I want to find them someone amazing because they're amazing. Wasn't, and similar to Mark too, not unattractive guys, just not for me. And after that, I was like, okay, I need to really be attracted to somebody who's attractive to me, and not just physically, but the whole picture, their beliefs, their personality, their mannerisms, all of it was really important. So yeah, I saw that in Jessica. Oh God, I saw it. And it was, for me, it was like so cringy to watch, because I hope that I wasn't ever like that. I really was like, God, I hope that I was more loving and, willing to give it a chance. But I also, like, again, I also wasn't drunk for 6 weeks on TV. They had these.
To be fair, they probably supply you with unlimited alcohol during that time.
Well, that's what I was going to say. They had them liquored up the whole time.
Yeah, they did.
It's not like, I don't blame Jessica. I don't think she has any kind of drinking problem. I don't know, but they had, and I think she said that they kept giving her whiskey. I think that's what she was saying.
God. Well, whiskey makes her frisky. Let's say that.
So yeah, I mean, she seemed very contrite, and I don't know that there's that much. Maybe you have a lot to say about Matthew Barnett and Amber. I don't have a ton to say about them.
Yeah, I know. I feel like they're basically like the football player and the cheerleader. I mean, they're both like, kind of like conventionally attractive people. And my personality type tends to fear and avoid those people.
Oh, I've dated a lot of Barnetts. I've dated them.
Yeah, I dated a few, and I found out very quickly that I was not compatible with them. And basically, like, the more conventionally attractive someone was, the less chemistry I had with them, or the worse they were at sex. I don't know.
Yes. I don't know what it is about the two of them. The one thing that I found really fascinating, and I don't think it was really played up enough, but I really enjoyed watching this, was the social interaction between two different types of groups from the South.
Yeah.
Right? Like Amber coming from not a lot of money, but a seemingly very loving family. And Barnett coming from more money, maybe upper middle class, who have more judgment on just people in general and the kind of people he should be dating. They seemed lovely too. I don't really, I didn't see anything glaringly terrible about them, but Amber, you could tell that she was so nervous when she was meeting them, and it hurt my heart for her, because she's that quintessential like Molly Ringwald character in the 80s, like wrong side of the tracks, but heart of gold. And I'm glad that they worked out. I'm really glad that he kind of looked away from the way his parents and family were looking at her and really decided to make that leap with her. That was really...
Oh, I have a more cynical interpretation of what happened in their wedding day.
Oh no. Okay, tell me. I'm way too optimistic.
I think, especially with seeing the way that his family was and how judgmental they were, and how confused he was when he was trying to pick a mate. He really seemed to have absolutely no clue what the fuck he was doing the entire time. I think that he suffers from what is an epidemic in our society, and certainly something that I struggle with too, which is people pleasing.
Oh.
I think he chose Amber. He didn't know who he was going to choose. He thought he probably, if he could have, he would have chosen all three. He wouldn't have wanted to make a choice. I think he chose Amber in the beginning because she is the one who would have been the most angry and the most confrontational if he had not chosen her.
Totally agree.
And then I think he went through with the wedding because he didn't want to face her wrath if he said no. So I think the whole thing was basically just predicated on him being a people pleaser. And yeah, maybe he ended up in a marriage that ended up good. They're probably, I think they're a good match. They seem to complement each other. They seem to have fun together. They have kind of, a light, happy relationship, and good for them. I mean, that's great. But I really do think there was a heavy dose of people pleasing involved in his decisions the entire way.
I can see that. And, I maybe saw it a little bit, but I think you're right there. I can definitely see that with him. Yeah, he just seemed also very confused. I don't know why he even came into
Everyone on the show was confused, but he seemed one of the most obviously confused, and so was Jessica.
Very, yes, and they're still together. I will say I'm not into Amber's new blonde hair. I preferred her as a brunette.
Oh, I like both. I think she's a very beautiful woman, of course.
She's a gorgeous girl.
Everyone on the show was extremely good looking, I would say.
Yes. And I think that is a really interesting segue into probably the universal favorite couple of the season.
Oh, Lauren and Cameron. Yeah, of course.
Lauren and Cameron, also both two gorgeous people.
Oh, yeah. They were very beautiful, both of them. I thought Cameron looked even better, and even Lauren, too, at the finale. Like, they were happy. You could tell they were glowing from the inside.
Oh, yeah. I mean, of all the guys on the show, he was the only one that I personally was attracted to. But there's no surprise because he's tall and awkward and conventionally handsome, but has but very smart. Exactly my type. I adore them together. I think they're a very interesting couple. And I think it seemed like they might have the most hurdles to cross, but at the end, not really. Yeah. I mean, so Lauren is African-American, Cameron is not. His ex-girlfriend of 5 years was as well. So he's not new to the world of interracial dating, which I think was really, really great. Yeah. Especially considering Lauren is. So she had never dated a white guy before. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of differences in their personality, just in her being very artistic and
he was a scientist, or he is a scientist. And not only is he a white guy, he's a white guy who lives in Maine. And he wanted her to move in with him.
One of the things that I found so endearing about him is how consistent he was.
Yeah, he really was.
Consistent, stable. It was like, this is my girl. I know it. I'm seeing her. I see her. It felt like he really saw her.
Yes.
And I loved that. And there were just so many great things about their dynamic. I saw a lot of myself in Lauren, a lot.
And well, her name is Lauren anyway.
Her name is Lauren. But I did, being single for a long time and having a really great single life and close with your family and a lot of friends and loving the area you live in, and maybe you're not the richest person, but you're rich in every other capacity. Mm-hmm. And I saw her struggle a little bit with somebody who's just so over the top stable, like just, this is my big clean house and this is my stable job, and just very, very in the box on the surface. But I think past that surface, he seems like he's, also maybe a little creative, a little kooky.
Oh, I think you have to be as a scientist, definitely. Right. Like, it seems very analytical, but take it from me, because I was a scientist. Yeah. I guess I still am. Like, you never really stop being a scientist, even if you retire from actively doing a lab project. But yeah, there is a lot of creativity involved in science. It's almost like cooking in some ways. Like, you got to be creative, but you also have to follow the recipe to some extent. So, and you got to know a little bit about chemistry, a little bit about art, a little bit about color. So, I can see that, his creativity. I definitely resonated the most with them as a couple too. Both of them seemed like, if I was going to pick someone to hang out with from the show, I would want it to be them.
Same. Either one, together, alone.
Yeah.
They both seemed great with just good family backbones. They gave a whole big setup on how scary it might be for him to meet her dad, because she's never introduced any boyfriend to either of her parents, and she's introducing a white guy, and her dad is very, very involved in the Black community, as is she. Mm-hmm. And they set it up to be this whole big scary experience, and her dad was so lovely. And
yeah, I mean, I liked what he said. Like, they put it on the preview and they were kind of making it this dun 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 moment. Mm-hmm. But when he said, okay, obviously she's Black, you're white, let's talk about that. Have you ever been in a room full of Black people before and been the only white person? Like, yeah. I thought that was great. Like, those were genuine questions, and that is important to talk about if you are dating across cultural or racial, ethnic, whatever differences like that.
Oh, sure. I mean, I thought it was really nice. I feel like I'm constantly schooling my fiance, not schooling in a harsh way, of just what it's like to be Jewish.
Absolutely. Yeah. Have you ever had this experience? Like, maybe you don't want to talk about this, but I'm curious if you've had experience with dating Jewish guys or not, and do you have a
Yes.
preference about that? And what did your family feel about this?
So I was never really, I love Jewish guys. Like I really do. And but I tended to be more attracted to non-Jewish guys. And at first it was, my parents were open to it, but I think they were surprised. I'm the oldest. My ex of 10 years is not Jewish.
And what
And
about like where you grew up? Were most people Jewish, or was it not a Jewish neighborhood?
well, it was a very Jewish neighborhood, a very well-to-do Jewish neighborhood of fairly, I hate this term, but fairly new money, of a lot of families who grew up very poor in Brooklyn, Bronx,
Okay.
Manhattan, Queens. So they had built this wealth for themselves. Kids of immigrants, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Immigrants themselves, like my dad,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. But there was a huge, I don't know if you've ever heard this term before, but there is a huge amount of Italians also. And,
Mhm.
notoriously, Jews and Italians get along very well.
Yeah,
And
I've heard that.
we have a lot of similarities in culture and stereotypical temperament. And especially more than anything, there's a lot of Jewish women who end up with Italian men in the tri-state area. It's so common that there is a term called pizza bagels.
I've
So
heard that, yes.
that's what a pizza bagel is. It could be, a non-Jewish woman and a Jewish man. Usually it's a Jewish woman and an Italian man. It's very common. And
It's common enough to have a term, yeah.
yes, it's, that's how I grew up. So I didn't grow up thinking that it was good or bad. It just kind of was like, oh, well, I could be with a Jewish guy or not. The first person I fell in love with was not. It was, probably jarring to my parents, but they were very accepting of him, very, and they adored him. And then after that, after we broke up, I was like, I should really see what it's like to date a Jewish guy, like maybe there are a lot of those similarities in culture that I didn't have before. Like, how cool would that be to just not have to explain everything? Like, that would be pretty cool. I tended to date, and even my 10-year ex, he is non-Jewish, but he grew up in a town that was very Jewish. So it was easy. I didn't have to
So he
explain.
understood, he was familiar with the
Yeah,
culture a little bit, yeah.
very familiar. So that was easy for me. I dated a few more non-Jewish guys after him that had barely met Jewish women, and I dated Jewish men. And I'm not going to lie, there was a kind of like an easiness
Mhm.
with dating Jewish guys.
Yeah, there's some things you just both understand. You don't have to talk about it.
Yeah, but I think for me, and this is a very specific instance, my dad's Israeli. So I never really connected completely with American Jewish men.
Mhm.
I didn't. It was different. Israelis are very different. Like they just are.
Sure,
So
yeah.
it's a very different dynamic and culture and personality. And so I've thought about it over the years a lot. And I wondered if that was maybe why I was more attracted to non-Jewish guys, because it was also different than Jewish guys. Does that make sense? Like
Mhm.
it's just, it was always different for me. I grew up calling my dad Abba, which means
Father
dad
in Hebrew.
in Hebrew.
Yeah.
So I always I would hear my friends calling their father dad or daddy. And I'm like, what? So creepy. Like, what is this? And it weirded me out. But I will say that I never connected with dating guys that were Jewish who were practicing, because I don't practice.
Right.
I'm very deeply connected culturally, but I don't practice. And so when I met my fiance, he's, he doesn't even say he was born Christian, because he was raised atheist by two atheists, and he's atheist, but he's Christian. That's
Because it's the dominant culture.
right. If it comes down to it, like, he is a Christian man who doesn't practice. And
Right. Yeah, because that's the cultural default. You absorb ideas and customs and culture of Christianity because it's just floating around in the ether like a fish swimming in water. It's like you almost can't help it. And most people don't notice it because that's normal for them. But if you're Jewish, then you are forced to take a look at it because it is different in some ways for you.
Exactly. And with him, it's great because he's always open. He didn't grow up around a lot of Jewish people. We're in Orange County, not LA County. So
Mhm.
it's a big difference. And I had to teach him a lot, and he loves it. He loves it. It's like, you know, I think there's a measure of exoticism there too. Like,
yeah, it's also like, no matter what your backgrounds are, respectively or individually, it's always great when your partner is curious about you. What makes you you? And when they really want to see you as a person, including everything that entails, your childhood, your ideas and values, your culture that you grew up in, how your culture has changed throughout your life, and what are your ideas now? I mean, those are all really important aspects of a person, and successful relationships happen when people are curious about their partner in every way and when the partners really see each other.
I agree. I mean, what about for you?
I have so many thoughts on this subject that I don't want to go into it, honestly, because I want to finish talking about Love is Blind. But I think we can put a pin in this conversation and come back to it later.
I agree.
But thank you for sharing your experiences. That was really cool.
And you have to remind me, because I just watched the most recent Mark Maron stand-up, and he talks about it a bit. And he's hilarious. I love him. But yeah, we'll bring up what he says in just piggybacking and going back to the comment about him asking Lauren's dad, asking Cameron if he's ever been in a room with all Black people. Mark Maron kind of talks about that from a Jewish standpoint. It's very interesting.
Okay, it's added to my apocalypse watch list officially.
Good. So sorry to get off on that tangent, but they both said yes. Cameron and Lauren said yes.
Yeah, but there was a doubt. Like, she was kind of saying, like, I can't promise you I'm going to say yes. I don't know what I'm going to say. And, to his absolute credit, he was just like, okay, like, I really want her to say yes. I'm going to be really disappointed if it doesn't work out. But he was just cool. He didn't freak out about that. He was sitting with the uncertainty, and he was rewarded in the end for that.
He was. And I think at the end of the day, those two really know how to communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it all comes back to that, right? At the end of the day, it's about communication, how well you communicate together. And
both of them strike me as really emotionally mature as well.
Yes, just very ready. I mean, and plus, it was a little cringy when he rapped, but it was also adorable.
Yeah.
It was also adorable. And I think from what I've seen on social media and people discussing it, they're definitely the fan favorite, which also I think is a really beautiful thing to see amidst a culture with a lot of hidden and not so hidden racism.
Yes.
It's really nice to see people embracing them and just loving them for, true love. I really love that a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. As someone who is in a relationship that is sort of like intercultural, I guess. I really liked seeing that. And, they say that at least 15% is the number I've seen of relationships are, quote, interracial or intercultural. So, really? It's a really common thing. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a great thing. Some of my favorite couples are intercultural or interracial, including your couple and my couple.
Right on.
Yeah. So do we have any final thoughts about Love is Blind and whether this experiment actually works?
Did we want to talk about the apology on the finale from Carlton to Diamond?
Oh, yes, we do. Yes, we do. How could I have forgotten about that? Oh, my God. Yes, we do.
Okay. So we talked about this in part 1 of discussing Love is Blind, where, Carlton is a queer or bisexual man. He's a man who has dated other men in the past. And I don't know exactly how he describes himself, but that's the best way I could put it, I guess. And, he got engaged to this lady, Diamond, without telling her that until they met face to face. And then he was really reluctant to reveal it, but he did. And it was this very cringy scene that played out where I think she was mostly upset about the lack of honesty and him not being upfront about that. And she was to me, she seemed totally willing to have a conversation about it. But he basically just kind of read what she was saying as rejection of him, because he really deep down wasn't okay with himself and wasn't practicing or didn't have a lot of self-acceptance. Yeah. And he freaked out and he got really out of hand. He said some very disrespectful things to her. And then at the finale, they were reunited for the first time in over a year, they said. And he apologized to her for what he said.
He apologized to her. And it also was interesting because it seemed like, to me, he was trying to start over with her.
Yeah. I don't think she was open to that, but she did accept the apology. He gave her the ring back that he threw in the pool during their fight.
He did. And I liked his apology. I liked that he was very open about the backlash that he received, as well as the backlash that she received, even though I really think any backlash that she received was just unwarranted.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting her to have received a backlash, but that's really, really too bad that she did.
It is. And I don't think she received anywhere near what he did. And it was almost like he needed to get that, external information to kind of see how he's been acting. And it seems like he grew from it. There's still like, I just had a really kind of intuitive bad feeling about it. I just don't feel like he maybe has learned as much as he could have learned.
Well, that's what I was thinking too. Like, to me, when he gave her the ring, it seemed kind of manipulative.
I agree. And I totally agree. There was just something off there. She saw it. She is intuitive as hell.
Yeah, she was a great lady. I was going to say, like, if I had to pick someone from the cast to hang out with, it would be Cameron and Lauren. But if I was going to be in a relationship with someone, it'd probably be her. I don't know how compatible we'd be, but she was really good. She had great boundaries, good self-respect, very intuitive. I liked her.
Same. And I like that kind of like look she was giving him, like,
Yes. Yeah, she gave him a little bit of a side eye. But yeah, to me, I was thinking about, why does this seem manipulative to me? Because sometimes it can be hard to put your finger on exactly why you feel a little bit of like a at something. But I think it was because it was almost like, okay, she doesn't really have as much choice if she doesn't want to accept his apology. It's like kind of putting pressure on her to accept the apology and to put on the ring, because he's offering the ring to her on TV, and if she rejects him, then she looks bad.
Right. I agree. I didn't like it. And before all that happened, I actually really liked him. I thought he was like kooky and funny and just adorable, but I think he's one of those people that still has a lot to learn about himself, about loving himself, about other people and how you treat people, because he said some really nasty things to her that he didn't directly apologize for. And that really rubbed me the wrong way too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's possible that he did and they cut that part out, but they didn't show it, at least.
They didn't.
And also, like, think of the challenge though. I mean, like, damn, it's hard enough, like, growing up Black in American society and getting a lot of racism and discrimination thrown at you on a daily basis, like the little insults and indignities that people of color suffer all the time. And then he's bisexual on top of that, or he's attracted to men on top of that, and he owns it and he's honest about it, at least after a little while with his fiance. I mean, that's a big challenge to overcome. And, he didn't handle it with 100% ideal grace, but to be fair, he had a big challenge.
I agree. A huge challenge. I mean, do you remember that episode before he was getting ready to tell her? I wanted to just give him 1,000 hugs. He was so nervous.
He was so upset. He was breaking down.
It was so hard to watch. And, I can't pretend to know what he's been through. I can try to be empathetic about it. And I felt for him a lot. Like, it just, and he did come out on TV. Yeah,
he came out on TV. But the good news is that he never has to come out again in future relationships. Everybody knows now. But
it's true.
You know what else I was thinking, Lauren? Like, okay, how many of the women up there in that reunion or even on the show, how many of those women have been with other women or even would identify as bisexual? I bet there was a lot of them. I bet it was at least half, and none of them had to deal with that at all. Even if they told their fiancés, their male fiancé, hey, I've been with women in the past, the fiancé probably would have been like, oh, cool, or, oh, great, do you want to have a threesome?
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's so true. No, it's so true. I mean, he's kind of one of the last frontiers of like just massive stereotyping and negative image in our society and in culture, being a bisexual man. And it's still not it's really not understood or accepted as much as a lot of other things that are not, quote unquote, the norm. And we have to give him credit for the bravery it takes in coming out on TV. I mean, my God, like, good for him that he was able to do it. I just wished he would have treated Diamond better.
I agree. That's a very good way to put it.
That's it. That's really all. But, I hope he finds himself. I'm not so worried about her. She seems like she's on the right track.
I think she's going to find what she's looking for. I hope so anyway. I mean, the positive side of when you put yourself out there on TV, yes, all your mistakes and all of your peccadillos are exposed for the world to see. People are putting you under a microscope and judging you a lot and saying crappy things about you on social media. Of course, that happens. Yeah. But if you show your personality, there's going to be a lot of people who are attracted to you and who want you. So even if your relationship on the show didn't work out, somebody out there is going to want to date you after that. And you won't have to deal with the TV cameras either.
I mean, I agree. He's an adorable guy. I mean, he really is. I don't think he's going to have much trouble with people wanting to date him after this.
Yeah. And I mean, right. So, did we miss anything? Is there anything else you wanted to cover?
I think we got it all. I mean, we could dedicate a whole nother episode to Nick Lachey and Vanessa Lachey. But
I don't know much about them. What are they? I mean, what are they? What did they do before this?
Well, Nick Lachey was the lead singer of 98 Degrees, that boy band, and married to Jessica Simpson, and had that whole Jessica Simpson is tuna chicken reality show that they had on MTV. So,
oh my God, I don't remember that.
Yeah, he was married to Jessica Simpson. They were together for a long time when she was kind of at her peak. And then she put out her new book, I believe it is, talking a lot about the abuses that she suffered.
Oh, so she alleges that he was abusive towards her?
No, not him.
Okay.
Not him. I've heard nothing but, really pleasant things about him. And same with Vanessa, but she also, she's been a presenter for a long time. And it was just always very interesting how he went from somebody to somebody completely different. So they're an interesting dynamic to talk about anyway. It's ironic that everything came out with Jessica Simpson and her new book, and just exposing a lot of really negative things in the music industry that happened to her at the same time as this Love is Blind show came out.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah, like both of them back in the spotlight in different ways, which is kind of fascinating. I mean, I thought it was hilarious how he introduced himself on the reunion show. Vanessa's like, I'm Vanessa. And he's like, and I'm Nick Lachey, obviously. Obviously.
Obviously. Don't you know who I am?
Obviously. But yeah, I mean, they were an interesting choice as hosts anyway, but it worked.
I think it worked, yeah. I mean, it must be interesting hosting a show like that because you have to have some kind of like therapist skills for the finale, like for the reunion. Yeah. Although I'm sure they tell them which questions to ask. Probably a real therapist writes the questions.
Oh, yeah. We've seen reunion shows. Hey, Andy Cohen gets a lot of credit. I mean, I'm a super fan anyway, but he's been navigating those Bravo reunions for over a decade, and he's pretty darn amazing at it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough job. You got to diffuse conflict, but you also got to keep it interesting and ask what's on everyone's minds. So that's a difficult job.
Oh my God. Well, I really enjoyed the show, and
I did too. You should definitely add it to your apocalypse binge watch queue.
Yes, you should. Yes, you should. And I think I've been hearing that there will be a Love is Blind too. Have you heard anything with a follow-up?
Oh, no, I have not heard anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if there is a follow-up planned. I actually heard that there were 2 additional couples that didn't even make it on the show that ended up on the cutting room floor. Did you hear that too?
I did. I think that there were a huge amount of couples and they filmed, those other 2 couples just as much, but I don't believe they went to Mexico. And I don't know why. I don't know why they didn't make it. Maybe they weren't good enough TV. Maybe it just was cut for time. But I would love to hear their stories. I would love to find out more about them.
Wow. Yeah, that's so interesting.
I love the show. I thought it was a great binge. We both loved reality TV and we both love relationship shows on reality TV. So.
Absolutely. 5 stars. Actually, 4.5 because the way that they did the weddings was, I think, exploitative, like you mentioned. But other than that, it was gold. Reality TV gold.
I agree. And I wish all of I don't know what we'd call them, guests, contestants. I wish them all well. I hope that they all have beautiful lives and don't take some of the harsh things on social media too personally and just, they need to work on themselves like we all do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you. If any of them are listening or ever hear this, thank you for helping us learn. I mean, I watch shows about relationships to learn for my own relationships, and everyone on that show helped teach me something. So thank you very much for letting us watch you.
I agree. I enjoyed it. And yes, I'm going to say a big thank you too.
Awesome. Well, this has been Proof of Lovecast. You can follow us online at proofoflovecast.com and send us a question. We do Q&A shows. If you have something you want to talk to us about, contact us through the website or hit us up on social media. Slide into our DMs. And I can say that because I'm not the one who checks them. So yay. And we've missed Tatiana on this show, but she is the normal host of Proof of Love. So Tatiana, we missed you and we hope you're back soon. I'm sure she will be. And everybody hang in there and stay safe and sane during the zombie apocalypse of 2020.
Yes. Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Show me your heart. I know that it's beating. Tell me that you love me too. So I know your heart is true. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love.
Thank you for listening to Proof of Love. Please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Proof of Lovecast. More episodes can be found at proofoflovecast.com. And make sure you leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends. Proof of Love has been brought to you by CryptoMediaHub.com, a boutique marketing and PR agency for Bitcoin and beyond. You are listening to Proof of Love with Tatiana Moroz, Dr. Stephanie Murphy, and Lauren Kasovitz. This show may contain adult content, language, and humor and is intended for mature audiences. If that's not you, please stop listening. Nothing you hear on Proof of Love is intended as financial advice, legal advice, therapy, or really anything other than entertainment. Please take everything that you hear with a grain of salt. Oh, and if you're hearing us on an affiliate network, the ideas and views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the network that you're listening on, or of any of the sponsors or affiliate products that you may hear about on the show.